Really good. I'll go to Thanksgiving and house.
Letter that the TAC would like to submit with their recommendation for the TMP. I believe. No, I got it.
Oh, Jen.
Speak of the devil, that UVU guy, I guess, can come in and run it then.
He's resourceful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the guys start to be funny, like better move or.
It was open, I guess it's like.
Or something.
I haven't been online either.
Went through the library. There, I just didn't get.
Welcome, we were waiting for you.
So, Laura, did you, here it is. Okay. So here we are, meeting to discuss the cover letter.
I didn't put any other line notes, but that first paragraph, can't build our way out of congestion, is great. I wonder if we want to put something in there like make Center Street 7 lanes. We can't just keep, what are we gonna make it 9 lanes? We're gonna make it 11? So I wonder if parenthetically putting in a note of, something about that would give the city council the idea of what we're talking about when we say you can't build out of congestion.
Like an ID,
Like a what?
ID, like such
Yeah,
as.
bring the cities or 90 or something in there.
Would something like, we don't endorse widening roads to fix the problem, or we need alternative solutions. So like, we need alternative solutions to widen.
Yeah.
So one thing I was I'll touch on since everyone's here, I had a pretty lengthy conversation with Councilman Millett today. She has on there specific things like she would like to eliminate some projects. And I just advised her that instead of making projects political, maybe we look at how we decide when projects need to happen. To your point about congestion, maybe we need to lower our level of service. Right now, the transportation master plan says we can have our acceptable level of service is D. Maybe we go down to an E, essentially meaning that we're okay being comfortable with more delay. We're okay with more cars being on the road because we may not want to build ourselves. Our maximum street width or maximum amount of lanes we want to have on a city street should be 5. Maybe we want to be as bold enough to say that. Now, UDOT facility, Geneva Road and State Street, but those are UDOT facilities. They're out of our jurisdiction. But our roads, because right now the regional transportation plan that's adopted, 2050, has 8th East being widened to 5 lanes from Center Street to 8th South. Maybe that makes sense. And that's where I advised to her is like, understanding that you might be close to that neighborhood and you're going to have a lot of political pressure, and in another neighborhood you may not. We should come to some consensus on how we should approach these projects. What's our acceptable level of service? And then what do we do? So that would be the comments that I would say is maybe we look at the processes.
So something like, for example, we should keep city streets to a maximum of 5 lanes. Which would include. Yeah.
I'm not sure what the best way, did you want me to work on this? Maybe I'll have the link to the document so you can look it up again. I obviously don't think we should.
I think we should work on it right now and get it as close to finished as we can.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation based on work experience. When you have a bunch of people around, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he's the one plugged in there. I'm happy to type.
Yeah, I'm
So
just.
you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
I love Google Docs. Yay.
Yeah, because my keyboard doesn't work.
Limiting city street roads to 5 lanes or less.
Well, other people know what city streets is. Should it be Orem,
Well, is that all streets other than State Street? Is 13 South Estate,
Parkway and State Street,
It's
16th North,
16.
8th North.
or all state?
There are some thoroughfares,
those are all state, yeah, state.
Yeah, state.
but anything like 8th East, 12th West, that's all Orem.
Yeah, you need somehow to quickly clarify that, because for a reader coming on this code, they're not gonna know.
City controlled streets or city maintained, city owned.
City owned right away. If you guys
city-owned
want
right
to,
of way.
On the transportation master plan, it's not like, I
It's
mean, I
not
think
like
people
you're-
who come here are gonna know something about it, so they're not gonna read this for fun.
I sure as heck hope not, because they got a pretty boring life if they do.
It's not a plot twist near the end. I'm looking forward to that. What am I missing here?
So we suggest keeping city-owned streets to 5 lanes or less. Okay, I like that sentence, it's
That's-
concise, conveys the general thought.
Do you want to include something like this means we might accept a lower level of service, or we acknowledge this might result in a lower level of service?
I think you should probably have something in
I
there
would
that
say
states
something
it.
like with the understanding that of the engineering trade-off between level of service and capacity or lanes. We recommend the city owned streets, stay at 5 or less, with the understanding that level of service may go to E or whatever. Something like that.
Yeah.
May suffer.
Does that mean congestion? We need to define that.
Normally I was fine with that until I drove here this afternoon.
Oh,
Um,
coming up,
I'm so glad that he reminds us though that that's really only a short time of the day, like
There are certain
there's
windows.
certain windows, and even if we built and built and built, there would still be congestion at certain times of the day.
There always will be.
Mhm.
And maybe that's part of the criteria is, I mean, as I was speaking to
neither that.
Lene, it's like lowering your level of service, or is it, hey, we take into account the peak, once the peak hour, it's a very loose term, is now a 3-hour period. Maybe that's when we look at actually understanding too, that right now is the time to do it, because in relativeness, 20 years down the road, everything's going to be more expensive, right? So there is that trade-off, right? It's like, we're going to accept it now, understanding that we will do that in the future, and we understand that it's also going to cost more.
So
So-
what about reversible lanes in the city? There is one up in Taylorsville.
Horrible.
It works, but you just have to make sure it's that origin destination. You got to make sure you have enough of a flush for it to work, right? Because you're right. I mean, the flex lanes is nice. Because we thought about doing that on 12th West between Center and University. What's that university down there? UVU.
Oh,
But anyways, there isn't a big enough peak flush in and flush out
Right.
to make that work, because yeah, there is an AM one and a P, but it's not enough to warrant.
Football game,
Yeah,
make all of it.
probably, but it would have to be a lot more frequent, to make the flex lanes. Like on a
6 times
daily.
year isn't enough to change the whole city.
No,
I mean,
6 times is way too many for Jay already. He doesn't want any more than that. But yeah, no, but flex lanes are an option, because I've looked at that and it's like, there just isn't enough. But
Okay, so that first paragraph, I think we're in good shape on it. Making that one change.
What is that, Blue magic, I just refreshed it, that's like, wow.
technology these days.
now, and I read this, see, you gotta understand, you all know where I come from. I'm the one who hates mass transit. I tried it and I don't like it. And I'm the one who thinks about my daughter-in-law and 5 kids. How is she gonna take those kids on mass transit? It's unreasonable. This is Family City, USA. Mothers are not putting their kids on buses or on tracks or whatever that is.
Right.
So you're going to have a very small portion of the population utilizing this mass transit. Because if you talk mindset, the way people are, you don't want to be inconvenienced. I want to get in my car, out of a nice warm garage, get there in 10 minutes. I don't want to walk 2 blocks to the bus stop, stand there, freeze to death while I wait for a bus, go down, make a connection, then maybe I finally will get where I'm going an hour later, and then I've got to turn around and come back and do that. And see, that's how my brain works. And I think that's how at least 90% of the people in Orem's brains work, because we've got a lot of families. Families don't work on buses, you know, you're calling your kids and you're gonna lose one of the kids.
It's a difficult proposition with families.
Yeah.
That
So
means,
that's where I come from. And that's why, when I read this, I thought, are we really that slanted toward mass transit? That we're gonna put all of our time and resources into other modes of transportation, like public transport. So, well, that's it doesn't mention that we're really working on those roads, helping flow, putting more lanes where we really need to. And so, you know, I agree, you cannot build out of congestion, but you need to do the best you can and consider all those people who are never gonna step on a bus or on a BRT.
well, I agree that there's a lot of people that won't, and to your point, if I have to ride the train to the airport, I've got to ride a bus down to catch this train, to switch to that train, plus I'm trying to drag luggage, it's just not gonna work.
Well,
I think the goal for me is to take the other people off of the road. The people who commute to work. And they may have to, you know, walk a couple of blocks. For me to walk to the BRT, I walk a couple of blocks, get on the bus and ride down to BYU for the football game. Granted, that's 6 times a year, and I understand, but I think that there is a group of people that are not yet taking their kids in places. So the younger couples, singles, the university students, and there is a certain percentage of those of us that are a little older, and I can say that, who are willing to do it under the right circumstances. When I travel for work, I never get a rental car in Boston, New York, Philly, Los Angeles. I take all of their public transportation, even though it's a little more difficult sometimes, but I don't have to deal with traffic.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that. Yeah, you got parking.
yeah,
also.
you see, no city can afford a car, so there's a situation where you have to.
Right,
And it's filled out, and lots of times theirs is up here or down underneath.
yeah,
It's not going down their
the main road. Sure.
Because if we do it, then we're putting it down our main road. I propose we put it over on Orem Boulevard.
Instead of State
Leave
Street.
it, let State Street flow and put your congestion, you know, put it over there. And people
Yeah.
that's.
I guess you understand that it looked like what it is on Parkway, right? If BRT is on State Street, it's gonna look like it is on Parkway.
And I know, and you're gonna lose 2 lanes of traffic.
No, you're not gonna lose any lanes of traffic. You're gonna take the center turn lane, that's 14 feet. You have 16 feet and 2 shoulders. So that's your 2 lanes for your fixed guideway for your bus. And then you're widening some selectively. You're probably gonna have either an 8 or 4 foot shoulder and then decel lanes. You're still gonna maintain 6 lanes of traffic. You're not taking any traffic, you know. See, no, seriously, I mean, in all seriousness, there's this, cause, no, just listen, just hold on. There is this theory that State Street, we're gonna lose traffic. That's not the case. They are gonna add those lanes with the existing right of way, similar to what happened on Parkway. And I explained this to Councilman Millett. She was under the same, I said, no, that's not the case at all. They're not going to, if anything, they'll widen a little bit. And because it's a UDOT project, they're not going to take away a lane. And if we have to do shared accesses and make it safe to ingress and egress from the businesses, that's what'll happen. But they're not going to take any existing capacity away.
And they're not gonna take the parking in front of those businesses away.
I would argue that you're not, I mean, if you were to go out there right now and go from here to 16th North, I bet you wouldn't find 20 cars parked on the street.
It's probably better.
It's
idea
too
anyway.
scary.
You ever have to get under the car?
Yeah, even though I agree that it is there, but I mean, when you're looking at if I'm that business owner, I think I would gladly give up this parking spot that is never used to have that transit station right there and people can walk in and out and shop. So I mean, and it is interesting that everyone thinks that they're going to take away capacity on State Street, and that's not the case.
I would like to make a motion.
Oh,
Yes.
I would like to move that we take this cover letter, paragraph by paragraph. I feel like we've begun to jump around
mhm.
and like, let's do one paragraph and call it good and then move to the next paragraph. Is that? Can we do that?
I think that's reasonable. I think we started to jump because the first paragraph covers a couple of topics.
Yeah.
And what I would say about the first paragraph is that, yes, we're acknowledging that we need to spend time on some other things, but that doesn't mean we're taking away lanes. It doesn't mean that we're not paying attention. The whole traffic planning master plan pays attention to automobile traffic. And what we're suggesting is that by spending some time on the other modes, we can actually help the other side of the automobile traffic.
And that's it, but I would just like somewhere in this paragraph, we're also to add in there, still building out existing roads as much as possible. And, you know, not ignoring that, because I kind of got the feeling from this that our focus is mass transit and bikes and
Well, and the
at
other
the
thing is,
expense of doing, you know, putting widening or, you know, improving flow on the.
That's it. And I mean, I guess to your point, Becky, this is a big thing because you're going to get a lot of resistance on necessarily widening because people who live there don't want their neighborhood destroyed, even though it makes sense. So, I mean, in looking at public transit, there is a public transit component to our transportation master plan. And maybe a paragraph in here saying, hey, there should be a focus on, because the major issues we have are commuting times. And maybe we just see hey, there should be an emphasis and a focus with public transit to enhance commuting hours to help. You know, I mean, because I agree, there's going to be the families that stay at home. They want to get around. We're always going to have cars. They're always going to need to get around. But for some of us who don't do that anymore, I wouldn't mind commuting. It's got to be within reason. And they also should focus on some of that. So
What if we added just a couple of words where it says, we suggest keeping the city on the streets? If we started that sentence with, when growth construction is required, we suggest keeping city on the streets to 5 lanes, etc. So we're acknowledging that there could be some growth-related construction.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that won't happen. But when it does happen, we suggest keeping it to 5 lanes.
I also added the need to also spend time and resources addressing other modes.
Okay, so that mitigates a little
Not
bit.
spending all of our time there, but that we have,
Oh, okay.
when it's going to have growth,
When growth requires construction,
We suggest
keeping the city on the streets to 5 lanes or less.
So it's
when
just
it's having
growth.
road service may drop road leave during certain times.
So that sentence, I think addressing your concern about
Yeah, I
not dealing
just-
with construction.
You know, I feel like I'm speaking for the 90% of Orem, who feels just like that.
Well, I'm with you. For me, though, it was mitigated by the paragraph that says some people only drive. So
I
that's why
would
this is-
replace that with most people will only. Because most people will only drive.
But
Do you disagree with that? Look at the BRT, look at Salt Lake, my daughter was down today. And I was talking about this and she says, look at Salt Lake, they put in all that stuff. And very few people use it, and it's been there for years and years.
It's very good.
It's relatively-
So the
But
numbers.
it's kind of like traffic though, there are certain times of the
Right,
day that
yes.
there are
Yeah.
lots of people that are riding that, and other times of the day.
Not
There's nobody.
Well, I think the answer is it depends. Right, it depends. If the congestion in Utah gets to the point, and the UDOT representative mentioned this, right, when he came here, he says, look, we're not building out anymore. We're done. So when I-15 becomes level of service F, people are gonna be incentivized to use the train. Because it's gonna be faster. And so it depends, when it gets to the point that it's bad enough, i.e. when I was in Chicago, I was with you, I was with the 90%, who would never, on this green earth, ever use transit until I moved to Chicago. I lived 15 miles from the city, and it would take me over 2 hours to get there in the morning. Or I could go to the train and get there in 10 minutes. So what, I want to do the train.
Yeah.
Right, I was incentivized, and it got to a point where I'm like, I'm not doing it, I'm not sitting in my car for 2 hours in the morning and in the afternoon.
Our pain points here, we haven't reached our pain.
That's, that, and we have at times, right, and I think Sam's got a point, right, when it reaches the times, we need to have a transit system that addresses those issues.
Right.
Right, and if that's in place, it's going to get used at the times that that hurts.
The thing that I have to
But to your
the
point,
thing that makes people.
A family of 5 is almost never gonna get on the train.
Yeah. the
Even
train-
during.
I took my family to the airport, I have 3 kids, my youngest is 8, he thinks riding on the train is the coolest thing ever.
Right,
Because we ride for free, because we have BYU IDs,
right.
and we didn't wanna have to pay to park at the airport.
But it
But I
also
also, it's
took
also
you,
going at a time,
took you
that was-
to
it
2
did,
hours.
it added another hour and a half
Right.
before we even had to be at the airport, it made it a really long travel day.
Right.
Would I do it again? Depends on the travel day.
Yeah.
Depends on the situation, I like that it's an option.
But you could do other stuff when you were sitting there.
Or the integration with kids, right?
Yeah, it's a nice novelty. I tried it, I know I was serving a mission in Salt Lake. Took it, and it took me, I could make it to my desk at the church office building in 45 minutes.
That's awesome.
When I did the train, 2 hours later with frozen feet,
Yeah.
and I'm going, and I tried it, I did it for a few months, oh my God.
So I have been working mostly, actually works mostly at home now, but sometimes in Provo, and occasionally has to go to the church office building. And he takes the trains on days that he doesn't have to stop and buy breakfast for people that are driving buildings.
Yeah.
The days that he doesn't have to stop, he takes the train.
Yeah.
If he has to stop, right? Like, so
So
it's like,
people on that
but
train.
the thing about transit is that people ride it when it's convenient, when it's inexpensive,
And when you got the time.
and, well, that's part of the convenience factor, right? That's part of it. Does it run where you need it to run? So if you don't have a system that's already doing that, no one's gonna use it. So there is a little bit of like, it has to be, if you build it, they will come.
Yeah,
Because it's circular, and it's used, they have over 7,000 people now using it. Right, so, I mean, I write that, and it's in the mornings,
Yeah, in the morning.
it's busy, but they have to run it all day if they're gonna.
well, I think the same thing can be said of the roads. In the morning, they're fully used, in the afternoon, they're fully used. During the middle of the day, not so much.
Depends on the- Also, for me, we're not trying to codify what we're doing right now and say we're never gonna change. This is a
This is-
forward-looking document.
And that's why I wanted to be sure that the slant that this portrays is balanced. Just balance it out so that we appreciate that there are those who will use mass transit and there are those who can't. It's just, you know, there's something that I think CJ talked about, old people who can't drive, use the bus. I don't think so. If you can't drive, you can't make it to that bus, and you can't walk 2 blocks to the bus, so, I know, speaking as a
Depends on what you're
76-year-old woman.
And I think the one thing we should be aware of too is one, make sure everyone gets a chance to finish their argument. I've noticed that a little bit here. 2, you got to realize the plan that we have in place is very auto-centric already. So understanding you're sensitive to the slant, there really isn't a lot that's really going to speak about some of these topics that are bringing up. So I know you're concerned about it, but there isn't anything in there right now. So this is just recommendations and they'll do some things, but
Okay.
some of this we don't have in there, period. And it's really, I mean, right now it was level of service D. And if it's not there, let's build it. Let's make it wider. Let's make it work. And it's like, this is a turning point where like, no, we're kind of done. And we're kind of turning the corner to make it uncomfortable. And like to Jay's point, transit's going to be more of an option. So it's kind of critical. I mean, it is.
The document was written how many years ago?
Yes,
This one was 2015, but that's for years up until.
Updated in the 2005 document. Next time it comes out, it's gonna be major
this is
revisions.
2022. It's the new, it was just revised.
That's the revision that they're looking at.
Yeah, we're just updating the
It's like
2015.
original document that is long time ago, and it was all autocentric and little pieces of other stuff is being added, and that's what all we're suggesting is next time there's a major rewrite,
Yeah.
consider everything.
Yeah, but I just.
Okay, so are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with what we've
Yeah,
added?
we can move on.
Okay, so next paragraph. Have to balance the needs of drivers and pedestrians.
We're on paragraph 3.
It'll go
Well,
faster.
but I think we've laid some philosophical groundwork that will allow us to move a little more quickly as we move through the rest of the
We're
paragraph.
the same.
So, but if land is effectively the
Got another meeting.
I'm happy with that second paragraph. We have to balance the needs as it sits. I think it's a pretty basic statement. We gotta balance safety if we're gonna do this.
CJ's comment is, in any functioning city, there needs to be roads whose primary function is to convey large volumes of traffic at high speed at the expense of all other users.
So that's State Street, that's Parkway,
800 north.
800 north.
I like his comment.
You know, at some point, the city is going to be divided by these major thoroughfares, and it is what it is. You know, and we do
We
want
don't
to,
have a lot of control over those as is.
right,
I don't know, Sam, I guess what control do you have
Over what?
over state-owned
Yeah.
roads?
So do I incorporate CJ's full sentence here, or do we just add some language to this?
I think that's fine, I think he's just.
I'm happy with the way it is.
Oh,
I think for state-owned roads, I guess the short answer is it depends. We have in our master plan right now, a project identified as the University Parkway and State Street grade separated intersection. They would have probably had that, and it could easily be a project that was happening, but there wasn't a whole lot of political support, mainly public support from some of the business owners. So I would imagine if there's a huge safety concern, we're not going to have much of a say in it, but I would think that's not going to matter. But similarly, even the mobility project, just doing median work all along the corridor, they had 2 areas that were prioritized, and some businesses came out and said, no, you're going to kill my business. Even though right now in the peak hour, you can't make a left in or out of there anyways, but that's going to kill them, right? So they're just like, UDOT's kind of taking a different approach. Is like, no, we get enough bad press as it is with some of the other stuff that we do. If you guys don't want it, then we're just going to wait until it's kind of at critical point. So
So I think CJ's comment is
is that,
kind of like the discussion we've had here. I don't know that we need to include verbatim.
Read it again, would you?
CJ's comment?
Yeah.
In any functioning city, there needs to be roads whose primary function is to convey large volumes of traffic at high speed at the expense of all other users.
I wonder if we limit this to city-owned streets again, because I think it's known, right, like, we're not going to put.
Yeah,
a
bike
bike
lane
lane
on stage.
on.
No.
But it's not-
those types of things, no.
It's not gonna happen, like, we don't really have control over it, because you're right, when they put the BRT in, you're not gonna have the lane capacity or the width anyway, so if we just limit this to city-owned streets. And I would like to add a sentence on traffic calming as a reasonable.
Safety measure.
Yeah, safety measure that should be considered when appropriate and based on engineering analysis.
And there's also.
Does that belong in this paragraph?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because that has to do with.
Yeah, that this is talking about safety, traffic flow and safety. Okay.
So is CJ saying anything different than what's here?
No, I think he's agreeing with it, he
It,
just,
it sounds like he's just saying it a different way to me.
yeah.
Yeah,
He did tell me he agreed,
Okay, good.
and then in the message, like I said. And then said I put some comments on it. Is that, Jay, is that robust enough?
I think that handles it.
I agree, and I really love that part of this transportation master plan has the traffic calm tool. Anyway,
Okay, we'll move on to the next paragraph.
did we want to clarify city-owned streets here?
No,
Unless we don't, city-owned streets.
Are we calling someplace in here that what we're talking about are city-owned streets?
Well, well, exactly, we're encompassing the entire city. To the extent that we can influence UDOT, we will,
right,
but
I was thinking we had.
So do you think, do we need to have balanced, do we need city-owned streets on there?
it's okay, I think.
okay,
Are we good with that paragraph?
I am. Sounds like we are.
Moving down? Do I need to move here yet? No, not yet.
It really makes a difference when you understand you're talking about city-owned streets.
Yeah.
And they're not.
Not State Street,
Yeah.
not Nations Road, right?
Yeah,
The transportation infrastructure encourages happy transportation. It's safe for people to ride bikes or walk. What people do. It encourages neighborhoods and communities are healthy and stronger economically. And I think CJ's comment was about being able to walk to the Amazon Walker to Delta. That's, I mean, we're way past the point where we have corner stores. You know, you look at the corner of 8th West and 4th North, I think there's some old store building sitting on the corner. There used to be a market you could walk to, and we're past that.
When you have a Walmart, all those die.
Yeah,
Well, and also, I mean, this is where, and this is not recommending higher density, but this is where we like to use,
well, I think mixed
more
use,
housing choices, instead of using higher density. I was told that's the better phrase to use. But this is where transportation infrastructure and planning, land use would really overlap, and we don't have any control over that.
right,
But we can say our piece about the transportation.
well,
That's what his note was, that's what CJ's note was about. This is
Okay.
out of our wheelhouse on this committee, but other elements of planning and zoning are major.
so could we put in a sentence that we suggest? And again, it's not our bailiwick, the planning, but we would suggest that, housing opportunities consider mixed use to reduce the need for vehicle travel.
I'm very comfortable saying that. I'm not
and,
sure if everybody
and
else is.
optimize the need for, or the, effectiveness of transit.
Yes,
Right, for the effectiveness of transit, we should recommend that higher density areas have mixed use considered in their planning options.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the intent of this is, because it seems redundant to what we've already discussed.
just so you know, the city
But-
council mixed that whole mixed use thing.
We know.
Here it is.
See, the State Street plan.
So.
All
No,
these
that's why we're putting it back in. I mean, you tell city council that they probably should have taken that without telling him that.
I actually mentioned that to Lene today. I said of the State Street Master, the State Street Master Plan, it actually made sense to have a district here at the mall. Just because you already had three, here we got all four corners are big boxes essentially. And it would have made sense. The other ones, maybe not so much right now because of business, but. See,
Oh, we're getting there.
So it's gonna happen either way.
oh, I know.
So either you plan for it and you plan it out, or you deal with what you get.
Welcome to America.
So is it redundant? Can we take
Well,
that out? Or
no, I'm just saying- I mean, if this is about that, then I like it, but this is about, I mean, these two paragraphs are basically redundant to what we already talked about, right? We make it safe for people to ride bikes and walk. Or some people are only gonna drive. It seems redundant to what we just said on top, right?
Yes, we could streamline this letter, but to a certain degree, I think the more times they read what we're saying, if indeed they actually read it, and just not here to defend themselves. But I don't think that there's harm in rewording and restating as long as we're within a page. if we wind up getting a multiple page dissertation,
Yeah, they'll be one.
then, yeah. But, you know, a short paragraph. You know, 2 sentence paragraph, it's short, it's readable. I would advocate that we do say something about the planning and let the city council throw rocks at us. Just because, you know, I pick fights. That's what I do.
How do we title it like,
It's a way of work. Um,
how do we title it, good planning and transportation infrastructure encourages active transportation?
Good job.
And so now we're addressing
I like
the
that.
planning and the transportation.
I was on the planning commission when we worked on the master plan, and I thought it was fabulous. Just planning for the future, but I also sort of think it's kind of not in our wheelhouse as the tag, but I do like just mentioning, I think it's a good thing to throw in there.
Well, I think that's the circumstances in our little burg have changed to the point where some additional options in the planning that were not even on people's radars before have come to the point where we might need to think about it. You know, I think some people want Orem to stay as
Family
a
city, what's that?
community-oriented bedroom community. And yet at the same time, we have all the stores, we have all the convenience, like from my house in 5 minutes. I can't think of a store I can't get to, right? And I have a friend, like my boss lives in Virginia, and he's like 20 minutes minimum to the nearest convenience store. You know, and so we're kind of here, and some of those things, like you said, you know, if we don't do a better job of planning or future things that are now coming obvious, which is what we did before, we've got to redo that process.
That's what was good in my opinion about the State Street Master Plan, it was forward thinking.
Right,
And saying, when we have inevitable congestion. It's, you can't say that everybody's gonna have 4 kids and everybody's gonna live here and it not get bigger. But you plan for it and you put it at certain places so that most of the neighborhoods in the city are not negatively impacted.
Right.
Yes, State Street's gonna be a pain in the butt forever.
yeah,
But if you drive a block either way, or 2 blocks, you want it to be quiet, you know, tree-lined streets.
right.
And that's what I loved about the State Street Master Plan. I thought, yes, let's plan, so we're not like haphazardly throwing patches on things. But anyway, sorry, I got emotional about that.
We just have a whole.
Well, I think, I think the one thing too, that I think we gotta, is that, I think there's starting to be more of a precedent set on quality of life.
Yes,
People are wanting, they're actually, their research and their studies, people don't want to commute further than 20 minutes or things like that. So I mean, even to your point, when you said, you know, the days of the neighborhood grocer are gone, I'm almost thinking it's not gonna be long before they might start coming back.
yeah. I hope so.
Because people are like, I don't want to go, and it's like, it makes sense to have a little grocery. I mean, who knows? I mean, the way it evolves, I could actually see it, and I wish it would, quite honestly. It'd be kind of nice to not have to.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know if you guys want to, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there, not to stir it up, but quality of life is something that is important. Major employers want to make sure, hey, I'd love to have my business here and have people that could live here and whatever, so.
Where can we throw that in here? Like,
One of our first sentence here should be something like, we suggest a strong correlation or planning between, you know, the planning, right? Have a plan is the point, right? We suggest having a plan to work with the planning commission, work with the transportation commission, work with, you know, engineering to develop a plan and to anticipate future growth, right? Or something very simple like that. And then follow it up with what you have already, right?
Was the State Street Master Plan, right?
Well, I know, and that's what our point is, we want to say that without saying that.
Yeah.
Right? I think everybody here, as far as I can tell, that they've said, having some sort of plan is a good idea.
Yeah, you need
Well,
people.
Now,
I think
I think Sam said it right, maybe the master plan was a little overreaching,
Yeah,
you know, and maybe that was the problem.
Well, and there are plans, and I think we need to be careful not to
That's why I'm saying we need
not
that.
recognize
Yeah.
them.
Right, no, I'm just saying super vague, right? We believe planning for the future and having a relationship between planning,
Let's say-
development,
let's say planning for
infrastructure.
growth.
What?
Let's say planning for growth.
Yeah.
That's-
Yeah.
I-
Growth will drive good quality of life. And I
Our
think the
planning
good
for
quality
growth
of
will
life
maintain our quality of life.
Maintain,
Yeah. Yeah,
Planning for growth will maintain. our quality.
I think you lead with that, but I like the,
Can't spell maintain.
you got
ANYTHING.
I am the one scholar.
Google will do what it can to help you out.
I do, so I.
Well,
Sometimes I
I
have
noticed you
people
didn't
stuff.
have
I still don't, not right. but it was- So it says now, planning for growth will maintain our, let's see, good planning and transportation infrastructure, encourage active
did
transportation.
you want to say something like, we suggest a strong,
correlation.
yeah, planning and
Plan.
correlation between,
Infrastructure and land use plan.
yeah, infrastructure, land use, and transportation planning.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to say with being as vague as we can possibly be.
Have we ever had like two members of this commission, two members of that one, two members of that one, sitting down and kind of being the middle of a triangle for infrastructure, transportation and land use?
Well,
If you-
they're
if you
usually,
want-
I mean, so usually it starts with the land use. If it's gonna change, then the others kind of adapt to it. When the State Street Master Plan was coming on board and was adopted, once it's adopted, then we look to adjust our infrastructure and our transportation, because you kind of have to wait for that part to get in front so that they have it in place. Because without it, because you can say, well, I need a 16-inch water main here. Well, do we want to pay for that if we're not going to have that density
I
there?
understand, but there are elements of transportation and infrastructure that could drive some of the planning decisions as well.
Well, I mean, yeah, if there's, I mean, I guess to your point, it's crazy for me to think that the governor's office of economic development assumes that because there's a lot of vacant land in Eagle Mountain, Saratoga, that's where all the growth is going to be. The land is cheap, but the utilities are way more expensive here because they don't have anything there.
Right.
So it's interesting to think that that's where all the growth is going to be, even though sewer treatments on this side, the water treatments coming from here. I mean, you got to get all of those utilities there, and it's a huge cost. So I've often wondered the same thing on that scale, but here for us, yeah, when we're sitting down with them, it's like, hey, I know you guys want to put this here. But that means we have to do this, which means our impact fees will change and all that. So we're fine with that, but we need to get all this other stuff in place in order to make it work. And when we do that, we only have an 8-inch sewer main and we need a 16-inch, and that's, so it's like we do have those discussions. And as long as everyone supports it, then we move forward.
Do we want to add anything in this paragraph about transit? We're just talking about,
I think transportation infrastructure,
that's right.
do we want to separate transportation?
Well, I think the reason, yes, the next two sentences are about riding bikes and walking.
Yeah,
So we call that out specifically, but I think maybe, and I was just thinking the exact same thing, maybe to start that sentence.
Well, I think
The goal is to optimize safety for all road users. Right, including,
In that third paragraph.
yes. While making it safe for people to ride bikes and walk or something like that.
What we lose if we change that though is the idea that your infrastructure doesn't just meet the needs that you have today. Your infrastructure can drive the needs you have for tomorrow. Right, so, well, we don't need that many bike lanes, for example, because not that many people ride their bikes, but we have the infrastructure that makes riding bikes feel safer, more people will ride bikes.
Right.
Okay, so the goal is to optimize safety for all road users while encouraging. The safe.
I was just
use
gonna
of
say, isn't
bikes.
optimized a Z? Isn't it?
Unless you're. an employee.
I cannot spell.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
No, that it works for the envelope. So. Well, encouraging
That's what
The use of alternative transportation,
alternative,
including bikes and walking or stuff.
right,
How about alternative transportation, including transit, bikes, and walking?
Do we need that, sentence that says research proves?
That one.
I want to just remark, we're gonna have to cut something out though, because it's getting too long,
We are gonna have to cut because we're over 2 pages.
because we've added two again.
I mean, we're over 1 page.
Well, I was gonna suggest, I think the next one's redundant.
We can make wider margins, that's what I do.
Just narrow them
I
up,
mean,
Wondering if we should move that.
make the font smaller.
If we're trying to express our thoughts to a group that might not understand where we're coming from, feel threatened. Do we want to keep that in and move it higher?
which one?
The next one.
Research?
You know, people will only drive.
I'm okay with it higher.
I would suggest something taken off that is redundant. I feel like this last one is redundant unless you feel like there's ideas that we would need. That need to be restated.
I think we're covering everything that shows up there for everyone.
Yeah, I don't think,
I mean, the thing is too, is I think we come up with this draft and chew on it, look at it, see if it makes sense, and understanding that it's not for everyone, but I love the spirited conversation we're having here, because I think we're getting to a good solution.
so in the paragraph where you're at,
Sorry.
planning for growth will maintain quality of life. I suggest that we suggest that strong correlation between land use, comma, transportation, comma, and infrastructure planning. I would move planning to the end and highlight that we have land use, transportation, and infrastructure planning. They need to be correlated.
I think land use should be the hyphenated.
Yeah, land use,
Sorry.
Land use, and then
And
just give
take
it
out
planning
planning.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, land use, remove planning after that,
right there.
there you go,
Okay, I'm happier with that sentence.
yeah.
If I get my one sentence of the night, that's it.
So do we keep the some people will only drive paragraph?
You can take out these, research proves neighborhoods and communities are healthier and stronger economically. That doesn't make it, there's no research proves neighborhoods. Oh, did you say that?
I was.
I was thinking proves. All right, now we went what?
It was neighborhoods that allow for active transportation.
We want to leave the sentence in, if we do.
I think we get rid of it, is my thought.
Kind of a fragment, I don't know where it kind
It's
of
not-
fits.
Yeah, we have to add to it if we're gonna leave it.
Yeah,
the research.
yeah.
I think we ended where we want it, right?
You could also. I mean, not to go backwards. Which focus, if we go to this first paragraph
Go back up, stand a little bit.
on. Quality of life and. It's from economics or economic development.
Economic viability.
Yeah,
Okay.
viability or vitality, one of the two, but
Vitality.
Vitality, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanna be.
There you go.
Then we want to take it.
Okay, I did the document, I gave you a word.
Quality of life.
I think,
It's under those.
I think we take that last, some people only drive, and we add it right at the beginning of we cannot build out of congestion.
Yeah, just combine.
Yeah.
it
Right.
within another
And I think you
paragraph.
just say some residents only drive. And then just leave that sentence, and then Orem, and then you just start Orem is to a point that building.
I think that's good, yeah.
Yeah,
And I think we cover the fact that we appreciate people are only gonna drive, and we talked about other alternatives there.
Mhm.
plus I think we recognize the fact that we do drive. I mean, that's just how it is, and we will for a
Yeah.
while until we're just right now at that evolution.
Well, and even as.
I don't think we need-
Loves, right, and taking transit, there are times where
You- you-
I absolutely drive.
Mhm.
I was told tonight, I do,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
I don't think you need that
Change
second
those
sentence,
Some to something a little.
if you just keep it,
Most,
I don't
Many?
wanna- I don't wanna say most, because I feel like that is.
many,
I say many.
Almost is true.
Many is more
But
than
I mean.
how about all? Let's just use the word all,
Yeah.
Laura, just
Oh, yeah.
all.
This,
Yeah, but again, we don't need to codify what we're doing today. We're looking forward and we're encouraging different behavior, hopefully, in the future.
it's not only residents in Orem, it's people that drive through Orem, right? So many, I mean, if you always say there will, you know,
I think
you
that's
say there'll always be vehicular traffic in Orem.
Oh, there will be in all big cities. I mean, there's always is.
Always.
should we go to the we must be fiscally responsible?
Is everybody okay? Do we want to take out the second sentence or?
It's the third sentence, right? If we are.
Right, if we actually got, because that's
Yeah, just,
what we're leading up to with the Orem at the point.
Oh, we don't need that, it's fine, do we?
If we,
I think that we could leave it or take it out. But certainly the third sentence,
it's real.
yeah, it's fine. I'm just thinking that next sentence, if we make alternatives, that's
That's
Right.
what we're saying on the next.
yeah, the last sentence already covers that.
Right.
If we make and then see if we still need that, it's fine.
So take out this.
Yeah,
Okay, how does it read
Everyone's
now?
eyes.
That's fine, because of the purpose.
I don't think it needs to be there,
Take that out.
Yeah,
because it changes the tone a little bit,
it does.
and that's kind of not the tone we're working on.
One is to build roads is either too costly to acquire land rights, or just not helpful because demand will increase building capacity.
Yeah.
When growth requires construction, we suggest keeping city-owned streets to 5 lanes or less, understanding that the level of service may drop to level E during certain times of the day. We need to also spend time and resources addressing other modes of transportation, like public transportation, biking, or on the neighborhood level walking. We want to say that this is also a way to mitigate congestion.
I think the one thing we might want to say is that level of service may drop to an acceptable level E or the acceptable level of service E.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what we're, because there's some that come to F right now, but I think we're also stating that we want to have, this is our acceptable level now. Right now it's a D. We're gonna accept an
Should
E.
we say our recommended acceptable level?
Yeah, something, but that, I think that kind of helps with that because there's places right now that are F.
Technically, that's not acceptable according to the plan. That's-
Right.
I said our recommended acceptable level E.
Yeah.
That's fine until I drive at 5. State Street.
where you were saying.
Or Center
something at the end of
Or
that
Center.
paragraph?
I'll take your pick.
Um,
Yeah.
That we also need to spend time and resources addressing other modes of transportation. We don't necessarily have to spell it out here, but the reason why is because it addresses congestion. Right, these other modes of transportation, if you can get somebody off the road with
Right.
a car, you're addressing congestion.
So you may say to reduce congestion. Right where you're.
No, that's great, yeah, before you say we, I like that. Leads right off the link.
Congestion.
And it's not just to reduce congestion, but reduce congestion environmentally
There's a lot of
friendly. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons we want to do it, but
Mhm.
to reduce this congestion.
I think it's.
this congestion, because we're accepting
Yeah,
a higher
exactly.
level of congestion as acceptable. But to reduce this congestion, we need to also spend time and resources addressing other modes of transportation, like public transportation, biking. Or on a
Good.
level.
Yeah.
That reads well.
Would transit be better than public transportation?
Yeah, we just need to be consistent. So I think we use
Use
transit below.
I just didn't write the transportation piece twice in that sentence, but.
We could figure out how to get it in a third
I'm
time.
not. Can we do other modes of
Walking
transportation, like public transit? Biking,
And it saves a few letters.
yeah.
There you go. We didn't pull out a whole line though.
Well, let's look at the fiscal.
Where are we at?
We must be fiscally responsible.
So is this roads for everyone gone then?
It's up in there.
Yes, it's below.
No, we got rid of,
Not everyone will.
not
go.
everybody.
Oh, yeah,
People below.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so the fiscally responsible paragraph.
I think this is the one I've been thinking about a lot. Personally. And I think BRT is only an example of what we want to say. It's one
Yes.
example, and Sam, you said something earlier, I really like, I hope you said it again, right? But I think the point is we want to look at every project to make sure that it meets a need, it has an engineering reason, right? And it's the right thing at the right time type of thing, right? Like, for example, for $50 million, we can do a grade separation at State Parkway, right? Hell, you could even give them a dedicated ramp to the mall. So they have two ways of getting there. They can get off, and then they can have the dedicated ramp where the light is now, right? Hell, that solves everybody's problem, right? $50 million done. But they want to spend $90 million, I'm gonna bring it up again, $90 million on an idiotic bridge at 8th South across the freeway.
Oh, good.
Why would we do that when State Street and Parkway is the fourth busiest intersection in the state? And the biggest problem in our city. Like, we want to prioritize and be smart about how, I mean, if we threw a couple $1 million at UDOT, they'd probably jump on it and we can get that done. But probably don't even need to, right? We just tell UDOT we're ready to do it.
Mhm.
But my point is, the wider point is we want to choose the right projects. We want them to fulfill a need. We want them to be prioritized based on our needs and the future needs. And we want to do it in a way that's.
So we want to deliver the right project at the right time. To meet our growth and needs.
Well, meet our current needs and anticipated growth, right?
Right.
How do you say that?
Well, and Orem has the right to do
And
that.
I mean, the BRT is important. I mean, maybe you just say, as an example, right? And I don't even know if we need the examples, but
Well, the reason I put it in there is because it is going to happen. and
I know,
that
and it's
there's-
addressed there specifically.
And I know that there's pushback for it, and I don't think if we frame it in the fiscal, like BRT is more fiscally responsible than light rail.
Right.
And I'm okay if we want to give a couple examples,
Yeah.
right?
Are
And
the,
just say, like, for example, BRT over light rail, Parkway over 8th
Eighth
South,
South.
right? Or,
New overpass. Could you need to point out which one it is, or
I mean, what would be better, an overpass over 8th South or another interchange?
what's politically correct?
Yeah.
Like,
I guess too, I mean, and I guess when I'm reading this and hearing it too, I almost wonder when we talk about fiscal responsibility, is it worth, I guess, is another angle gonna be, is it worth it to widen a road or do the improvement? Is it worth it to destroy a neighborhood? Is it worth it to remove that business? Is it worth it to do that?
Sure.
Right. I mean, and that's what happens, right? Is like, well, it's not where I'm going. So I never drive up there. I don't know anything up there. So it doesn't matter. So I don't know if that's the route we're trying to get to here is like, okay, we got to find that balance when it's worth it to sacrifice our community for the greater good. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming because
I think that's
it can
all-
mean a couple things.
I think it's all included, right?
Yeah.
You should look at everything when you look at a project.
Yeah.
And I think because those projects are in the master plan does not mean that we agree with them, right? Or that it's the right time to do it, just pick one or the other.
Yeah, because really those projects are identified because of the data and our acceptable level of service. That's all that those are. Those are a macro analysis, the growth, assuming that this is your acceptable level of service, you will need to do something here, here, and here. And whether you want to do it now or later or never,
Right, click and see if there's another word.
Do we have the right, this one city, to say, we don't want you to do that, we want you to do this?
For what?
Well, like, instead of doing the 8 South overpass, we want the 13 South flyover, or whatever. Do we, as a city of Orem, have the right to tell UDOT, or who is it?
UDOT.
UDOT, which one of those projects we'd rather have? Is that?
we have the right to say it. It's, I don't necessarily,
They have the right to ignore our suggestions.
yeah, because case in point, right now we have the widening of Geneva Road down in front of the temple, and we have 1600 North that needs to be widened. Both are UDOT facilities. Both were funded until in inflation and costs went up. So they're choosing to widen Geneva Road, which, if you ask me,
Not less impact.
I would rather do 16th North, because 16th North, we've already moved through, we got it ready to go. I'm selfish on Geneva Road because I still have to build Lakeview Parkway, and I would rather have it built and all that tying in, you know, at least have one built and they tie in and it all works, instead of have them do 5 lanes down and it dead ends. And then I got to wait a year to build mine. It's like, why don't we try and coordinate this a little bit better?
Not talk.
We can, it's just that when you go to the next level, okay, you have a room full of people here that are talking about what they have going on at Orem. When it goes to the state and they have their own transportation commission, you have oil money from Vernal, you have Weber and Davis County who feel like Utah County's been sucking all the money out of UDOT. You have anything, I mean, you got the whole state now, and you got bigger players, bigger numbers, you know, they contribute more to the overall economy. So what we want here is kind of like, move along, little kid.
So it's real political.
Oh, it's way political. It's very political. And even at that, talking to UDOT, they're like, because they prioritize Geneva Road widening higher based on the fact that it's a parallel facility to I-15, which then Eric and I get into the debate of, well, it's a parallel facility to nowhere. We're trying to increase east-west connectivity. Let's do 16th North. No, Sam. I mean, it's like it's really, it's way above our pay grades. It's being decided.
You know, if we could just, we want to tell UDOT.
Well, and then so what happens is, because in that meeting, Eric said, hey, they pulled the funding for 16th North. And that's fine. And then what we have to do is then we go the other route that we take to circumvent the system is then we hire a lobbyist who starts talking to all those legislators, and then they do it. We actually end up, we end up getting to the kitchen table via the back door. And then that's how it happens. It costs us a little money, but it's that political game that we start to play. So
My personal opinion about using BRT as an example is that BRT is a broader concept than a specific intersection. So to me, it makes sense to use BRT, but not talk about, you know, you see what I'm saying? It's just a one step out, a little broader view versus mentioning specific intersections or interchanges. To me, gets a little too in the weeds maybe,
Yeah.
but this is a cover letter with, you know, more general concepts.
And that makes sense.
the nice part,
Although I recognize that you are passionate about it.
No, I agree.
the nice part about that too is it kind of brings in a regional component to this too, to where we probably need to make an effort to coordinate with Linden, with Vineyard, with Provo, to make sure that they're not aiming a 7-lane barrel right up, you know, the chute, and we're saying, sorry, we can't do that. So
Alright,
How about starting the whole thing within the limited budget? Within the limited budget,
After fiscally responsible or before that?
no, the very,
So take out fiscally
no,
responsible.
no, just right there,
Right there.
yeah. You say within the limited transportation budget.
Prioritize projects that meet current needs and anticipate growth. This means selecting the right projects at the right time with the most cost-effective solutions. Is that a place where we put, for example, bus rapid transit to model and light rail? Yeah. We could also do a second sentence about purchasing right of ways by power of eminent domain is really costly.
I think if we limit. Well, I don't know. I'm lost. Forget that I even interjected.
Well, if we did I don't know how to include the idea that Sam was talking about, with like cost.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that right now. Like there's a wider cost than just. Money.
So the social cost to our neighborhoods.
Thank you.
And that goes back to the.
This
quality
means
of
selecting the
life.
right project at the right time with the most cost effective with consideration for
Social cost.
the social cost.
In our neighborhoods.
Something like that?
Say again.
Is it something like fiscally and socially responsible?
There you go.
Good.
Very good.
So
Then we've introduced
after
that
cost
idea.
effective, this means selecting the right projects at the right time with most cost effective solutions.
With consideration for.
Our neighborhoods.
There you go.
Neighborhoods, do you like that better?
I like neighborhoods, because that's what we always talk about in Orem.
What did we say up top? We said, what did we say in the very beginning?
Out there with quality of life. and
Quality for us, there you go. With consideration for our, what if we stay consistent, right, with our neighborhoods?
Our
Quality of life or
neighborhoods and
something.
quality of life.
Yeah,
I still have it.
I think the reference to our neighborhoods and quality of life ghosts the eminent domain of the.
it does.
See, there's a fiscal element to it, but there's also.
Yeah.
social cost.
See, this, I like it, because we've been vague, but we addressed all of that.
Yeah,
We did that without you, Sam. Good stuff.
Awesome. I knew you guys could do, that's why I left.
Remember what you said, you used your word,
There you go.
it's fancy word.
I don't think we have to justify it, that's a known. BRT is more economical than light rail. So,
Period.
Well, I wonder if you're gonna take out sentence, I wonder if we can't say, for example.
BRT is more economical and more flexible.
Yeah.
Flexible, that's good. Because that's really the only way we're gonna get Oremites to write it,
Yeah.
you know? Without, I mean, maybe they'd rate sexy light rail, but they're not gonna ride unsexy BRT unless it's flexible and they can get closer to it, get closer to them.
But you know who might really write it is all people that are going from airport and then walk through Orem to get somewhere else. And again,
Well, I think that's Sam's point, right? You get the agency.
Yeah.
And then we take their business out of Orem.
We wanna be specific, say, like, the reason we're bringing this up, like, for example, you know, there's an alternative, well, there's two alternative, light rail and BRT in the plan. Yet BRT is,
Makes more sense.
right, I also wanna say, like, this is our opinion.
could we say, for example, support bus rapid transit? because
Yeah.
it's more economical,
Yes.
but-
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
Yes.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this then is gone. Do we need the roads are for everyone?
Or we need kind of a summary paragraph.
I agree.
a quick.
Is that what this paragraph
That's
is?
kind of the idea.
Yeah.
Let's close this out.
So I like the first two sentences for a closeout. We recognize that a large public space. We recognize that it's a large portion of our tax dollars. Right? We recognize that.
Got it.
As such,
Can we just do that and take this out?
Yeah, I think take out the 30%
yeah,
thing.
Also,
Probably need some-
I've read it too many times to know where I found it, like, dang it.
Yeah, but maybe we don't.
not
But
in
Can I delete this?
yeah,
Yeah.
And then this is our closing paragraph. We recognize that city streets are the largest public space we have. A large portion of our tax dollars supports the building and maintenance of streets. We look forward to working with you and encouraging transportation plans that keep.
our values, Orem's values, our community values.
Quality of life and economic vitality. Do we wanna
Repeat that
Yeah,
in our.
repeat it.
I learned that in English class.
You tell them what you're gonna tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them.
Yep.
We look forward to working with you and encouraging transportation plans that.
I spent how much money to take that
quality of
class?
life
Remember
and
that?
economic vitality in mind.
Thousands?
Yeah.
Not that in high school English.
Oh, we had to pay to do it in college. Tell us the same thing.
Keeping.
Keeping Orem's
I guess we're very modeling.
as a
Yeah.
great place to live and work.
Keeping warm.
If you're.
Keeping Orem's status.
What is your transportation budget? What?
Here's the stats.
Well, it depends. We got a couple different, B and C road funds give us. So B and C road funds, we spend probably, we got a couple million that we'll spend out of that between crack seal, slurry seal, microsurfacing and then asphalt treatments. And then with our transportation sales tax, I think we get another couple million. So tax dollar wise,
1.5 million.
yeah. And then, I mean, some of that, huh?
Then whatever big costs.
Yeah, and then occasionally we'll supplement with some general fund money.
I know.
So it just kind of
So
depends.
does that count like RTC coming in?
You like the roads.
So say that again.
Like if we have a big project, we get money from the county.
So usually the transportation sales tax and the B and C road funds, that just goes into our maintenance. And some of it goes into new infrastructure. But our big projects that we use for MAG money, that's usually gonna be, we usually use general fund money to match that, our 6.77% match. So that's where we, because we usually use all the other money in our maintenance, we never use it to fund the other, we could. That's usually what we do, plus they'll use it to buy some, I mean, obviously, we don't spend all that on the roads, we'll put it into some of our assets we have done in public works too, but it's a lot.
Okay, there's enough room on this document as it's
All one page?
for, all on one page for us to put our names, probably put them in columns.
Sign it, have it all signed, I like it.
And we could put signatures on them too, if we want to. I'm gonna go ahead and clear out Jay's comments.
Right.
Does anybody signature, which
I appreciate it very much.
I love it.
Okay. So do we wanna sit on this for a bit? Do we want, what are we doing now? What's our next step?
So the next steps for me is that I will take a similar presentation that we had at the work session for council. I'll go to the planning commission and do the similar type thing. We'll have this now to discuss.
How did that go? Sorry.
It went really well, I thought. It was an interesting meeting. I think there's a lot of people thinking about some things now, and I was very optimistic in my conversation today with Councilman Millet. This, just to think bigger picture and think of processes instead of not wanting to do things. It's like, well, if you don't want it there, you may not want it here, or you may not want it there. So let's just look at how we evaluate it, and let's look at that process and streamline it. So I like the fact that we're embracing the fact that we're not going to build out of congestion. It's gonna be some growing pains, but I think it's how it should be, because we need to preserve some of these spaces we have and encourage quality of life. So it's a good step forward. And I think if it helps us with our transit planning, if it helps us with our active transportation planning, if it helps encourage, hey, if we embrace this, maybe it morphs into our land use planning and things can change. I mean, I really like the fact that a lot of people want to come here and live in Orem. I like the fact that Orem is the hub, and it's kind of everyone looks to Orem. So I would like to continue that. This type of conversation we had in here was awesome, because we all had differing opinions. We're coming from different spectrums, but we're coming together to realize we're all in this together and let's make it work. And I think a lot of people kind of forget how to do that. So I don't know. I'm a little optimistic that they'll appreciate this. To say that they're going to deny it would be, I think that's a reality. There's going to be some things in there that they may not like, but I just like the direction it's going. I mean, and it wasn't very negative from the council thing, to get back to what you're saying, but they were concerned. But as I sat down with her, like I said, for an hour, she understood. And that's what I would say. If you get a lot of people that are, I mean, I'm gonna go meet with the school community council, and that's gonna be, I mean, it's like taking a lamb to the slaughter, right? I'm gonna walk into this room full of, yeah,
I already said this when she's going through, she's inviting, I was like, as long as it's not contentious, and she's like, oh, no. We're all out for kids' safety, that's what we're all talking about.
oh, I know.
Sam hates kids, so.
Yeah.
She's like, no, we're building on common, I'm like, okay, because I was like, oh, you're inviting all those people.
Yeah.
It's been an accident.
You need backup?
I was like,
I'm gonna
I don't know about that. I want to send Sam to that meeting.
Yeah,
I'm also gonna try to.
Yeah, the interesting thing too is since that's been planned, did I mention this to you guys, that the fatality in Springville was just down the street from my house? The girl was my neighbor.
Which one is this?
The high school. No, it's-
Yeah. Sorry. But anyways, my just give me a sec.
It's always tough when someone.
Well,
is that close.
she was our neighbor. My wife was the first one on the scene that was providing CPR. So mid-block crossings, they obviously hit hard. Safety for kids, because she was a high school kid walking to school. So yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Ever since this, I haven't been able to. But anyways, I'm quite comfortable talking to them, because it's not as if I don't have a vested interest.
It's personal.
Yeah. So to say that I know we jest, but no, it's very much on the forefront, because I deal with this all the time. I mean, crosswalks, kids, and Lily, I don't know if she wasn't paying attention. I don't know if she hit the beacon. You know what I mean? It's the driver didn't see her, and it's very unfortunate, horrific, but yeah, and it's a busy street that I live on. So safety concerns, all these things that we talk about here, planning and active transportation. I mean, yeah, we do the best that we can. Yeah, when I go and meet with them, it's not as if I won't have that impact of, yeah, safety is a concern for sure.
It's the school community council on my elementary school. They finished that right.
Yeah.
So it's not a city, I think it's more of a local.
Yeah.
Their city plan.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Kathy and I went to the meeting, Jay, and it seemed to go well.
The best thing about it is,
We got copies of the master plan.
That's better.
It's worth that.
Oh, yes, it was helpful. It seemed like some
That's
people,
where.
I mean, they were over.
Right there.
This is where I think the cover letter would actually be really useful, because they were completely overwhelmed getting that. They started looking at a couple maps, and they immediately did what I did when I first looked at it, which is, where's my neighborhood, how's my neighborhood be impacted? What do I like? And some of the questions started along that direction, and then there was a zoning issue coming before the city council. That night that they focused on one of the roads right on it. But I feel like people were open to it, but I do feel like that's where the cover letter could be useful, just to say like, here's, as our committee, like, here's the bird's eye view of things that we are thinking are important. My question, Sam, for you is, moving forward, if the city adopts the transportation master plan, do we, to Jay's point earlier, do we as a group get to say, okay, this is a priority, we want our dollars to go this way, if it's Orem funds and not MTA funds? Or UDOT funds?
What specifically, what are you talking about?
I mean, I'm not saying
Well,
project in mind, I'm just.
So
saying-
it's, yeah, there's a list of projects in there, how do you choose, or who chooses?
Yeah, that's my question.
What's gonna be the next project up?
So for me,
And do we have a role in that or not?
what I will typically do is, if we are doing a major project in a near vicinity of something that's on that list, I try and figure out, hey, is there a way to incorporate that? If there's nothing going on, and like right now, I've asked Jamie for an ongoing budgeted amount of $200,000 to put towards intersection improvements, or I think I've categorized it as transportation improvements, because some of these projects are in the millions of dollars. Ideally, it would be TAC. We now have a budget of, I've been budgeting $200,000 for the past 3 years. We have $600,000. Here's our list. Is there a specific priority you would like me to look at? I'm currently looking at this, and this. Is there anything else that you guys would, think that I need to do? Is there anything that you guys are familiar with that might be a higher priority? We can go collect data and we can kind of bring it to you, look at the data, and then figure out which one you support. That's kind of the way that I would do it. I mean, if we want to follow the list 1 through whatever and just pick them off, we can.
But that priority changes over time.
Right.
One that might not be important today, while we're working on project 1, something may happen that
Right.
changes that
Yeah.
prioritization.
Yeah, because
Be a part of our meetings, our monthly meetings is, here's the
What's
list.
next up?
When we see-
At
yeah,
the same time, I'm not sure that I would expect us to have a final say in any way. But more of a suggestion
Just support.
that is part of your consideration to take into council.
usually for me, when we have our budgeting process, I will bring forward, hey, I mean, we go through all of our capital projects, and if there is something there, I have no problem, like we'll be going through that process starting in January. And if it's looking like we're going to get the other $200,000, and it's going to continue to keep going, that it's like, hey, then this is also the advice from TAC. They would advise that we look at these are the top priorities depending on opportunities that arise, because we might want to do a signal, say at like right now, I mean, for me, Main Street and 2000 South is a priority, as well as, and that's a brand new signal, or at least intersection improvements by purchasing the home that's on the northwest corner. That would line up that intersection. It seems to be offset. We have some drainage issues there too, and it would be nice to have that intersection completely built, because it's getting a lot of traffic, and there is a chance that with the regional transportation plan and a possible freeway interchange in that vicinity, Main Street's going to get a lot of traffic, so that intersection will need to be improved. But also, one for me is 8th South in Orem Boulevard. The old fruit growers storehouse is way far out and that intersection's off on a skew pretty bad. So that might be one of those things where all of a sudden they might be a willing seller, and it's like, hey, we got to mobilize and get some money And maybe I do an interfund loan from other enterprise funds or whatnot, so we can purchase that, and that moves that up in priority. So
So when these larger projects, the multi-million dollar, tens of millions, where do you go for those?
So for those, what it'll be, it's similar is like, so right now we just finished our MEG funding cycle. So in a year from now, we will be doing that again. So that's when it will say, okay, look, here's the transportation master plan. Here's our big ticket items. We're talking anything from $10 million and up, or 5 million up, something that obviously we couldn't fund in one funding cycle. Is there a priority? Do you guys have a preference on which one we look at? Do we look at 8th East? Is that going to be supportive? Do we want to go down that route? Because if I submit for that concept report, then it kind of starts, and likely really from this group, we probably should start doing that in the summer. And maybe we reach out and taking advice from you guys, if the top 3 are 8th East, 8th South, say, or 4th North, just for example, I don't know what those are. We probably should put out some feelers to say, hey, is there much support in the public to widen any of these, both by those who live here and those who live on it? And then maybe if there is, if there isn't, if they're lukewarm, then we move forward, but that's kind of what.
Decide which fight to pick.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because we don't need to get beat up any more than we usually do.
We're at 7:01.
yeah,
You know, you have a
she
meeting for Charlotte Springs.
made a special request.
But keep going.
Well, could we close the meeting and then if we have any more chatty questions?
I think so, yeah.
Just one point in the meeting, do you want to appoint a vice chair so that if Jay's not around, somebody?
Yeah, I guess with that, do you guys want to have a vice chair? Because at the time, we didn't see you lurking in the window.
Yeah. They think really hard.
That's what we don't.
But yeah, so we have a motion to appoint a vice chair. Do we have a second to make that happen? And then I guess you guys can, last time I think we nominated, and then or we can do the,
We also,
I
yeah,
second the motion. I second the motion. Is anybody interested?
In the vice
I
chair.
could do it.
I could do it too, I don't care. Either is fine.
I don't have a vested interest in the AMA, just think we have someone that could do it.
Wants it more.
Flip a coin.
This. No, I'm just-
I don't
I don't have a coin on me either.
Laura, so You know,
That's
if I lose the ordinance, does that mean I'm the vice chair?
Yes. Right, you gotta clarify.
Gotta clarify it.
I honestly don't care. I really don't. I expect Shay's here most of the time.
Well, Laura did this, let's let you do that.
okay,
I.
So,
second
wait a
that.
minute, is that a motion? It's a motion, it's a motion, yes.
She's nominated.
It's not an emotion. I nominate. Yeah,
Marlon.
Marlon, sorry.
I answered the village idiot too. so
I said Marlon's on.
All in favor? Opposed?
Just Marlon.
Mark me as abstaining.
So is that all
So
we
that's
have?
like a delegate, right?
Yes,
All right, good.
and I know where I can
So
delegate.
what do you do with this letter?
I would say if you guys, I mean,
Could you
I
print out
suggest you
what
post
you
it.
have and then send it out to us? So that we all. can
So
see
it is the same link that I will send the lady.
Okay, so.
I suggest we let it sit for 24 hours, we marinate on
If
it,
there's
unless there are major changes. I mean, grammatical changes, yeah, let's do that. But unless somebody has major heartburn, major changes, we go with it as is.
Yeah, I think so. You want to send an email about that, or say that you guys, the ones that aren't here.
yeah, Russ and
look
CJ.
over it, approve it.
And are we signing names? That's always tricky, because I don't have a map. But
I think
it's been in our hands.
I think we got our names and Jay signs as the chair.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Whatever.
Yep.
Do we have a meeting in January?
December.
We have a December one. So the night before planning,
We canceled the one in January
Right, December.
and July. December sixth, December sixth.
yeah, so the first meeting, it's actually the night before planning commission in December.
Are we gonna have anything to talk about since it hasn't gone before the planning commission yet or the city council?
And planning commission is just gonna be the work session.
Do we prioritize projects? Did you say?
Yeah, if you wanted to, if you wanna,
We've really gone on the list.
we can.
I'd also really love to talk about the bike plan that is mentioned in the traffic.
The one that hasn't been updated.
Well, one, it hasn't been updated and that needs it, but also how much of what was already planned was ever implemented?
Okay, so you just wanted like a report back on what's been done?
We're involved when
Because that might be a recommendation too that I bring forward for budgeting is that we budget money to update our bike ped plans.
Does the county have a master plan?
They probably do, because they'll have a trails master plan.
Well, I know that, but I'm just saying a general transportation master plan for the county.
Yes, not about 50.
It's probably Transplant 50. It's probably the RTP that's out there.
I'm assuming if we recommend projects, have it fit into that better than others.
They might have.
We have a
something
better,
else.
we have a better option of funding them.
There are definitely people at that who are invested in expanding active transportation.
I make a motion
Recreational
on
and
post the meeting.
I'll
I make a motion that we adjourn. I'm gonna make a motion, we can,
say any objections.